Hello, my name is Chuck Wolf. Over the years, I've worked in many different roles, including leading my own leadership consulting company since 1994. I've worked for and with some of the best companies and universities in the world, and have had the opportunity to work with government officials, military organizations, and public and private schools. I'm a leading expert and pioneer in emotional intelligence. Since 2009, I've been a volunteer hosting a radio show I created called The Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. I really enjoy making a difference in people's lives. The show is on award-winning community radio station, WPKN in Bridgeport, Connecticut. In recent years, Simsbury Community Television has been sharing my shows on their station and on YouTube. My sincere hope is that everyone who watches regularly will learn how to use the Emotion Roadmap in their own lives by listening to people who call in to get help with challenges at work, home, and in communities. To learn more, go to www.emotionroadmap.com. If you have a comment or question, email me at cjwolf@cjwolf.com. Thank you and enjoy the show. This is Chuck Wolf, and you're listening to the Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. I want to thank everybody who's a regular listener for tuning in. It's always nice to have you back with me. If you have a reason to call and you've been waiting for me to get back on the air, the number is 203-336-9756. If you happen to be riding by in your car, or you just happen to be listening at home to WPKN or in the office somewhere, or somewhere at a job site, I welcome you to the show as well. If you're new to the show is about helping people to deal with challenging situations in their life. So let me give you a moment just to think about, is there something in your life where you feel stuck, where you're uncertain, having to make a decision, deal with a conflict, handle an angry client, parent, child, friend, boss, employee? Whatever it is in your life where you feel like you're uncertain about what the next step should be and how to proceed, the concept of trying to understand the role feelings play, what emotions have to do with it, and how to control your own emotions and influence the emotions of others, is what this show is all about. If you've got something and you feel like you want to give me a call, again, the number is 203-336-9756. And I'm here for 1 hour, the first and second Wednesdays of each month, from 12 noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Time, to try to help people to deal with the challenges that they face where they get stuck. And I don't think you should feel bad if you're stuck, because honestly, most of the people I know, excellent critical thinkers, really good problem solvers, when they're stuck, it's almost always because something emotional is happening. They're either concerned about emotions inside themselves. Once in a while, it's an issue that you're just dealing with yourself and you're looking for some way to make an informed choice, the best choice, when the circumstances and the situation lack some clarity about what the best choice really is. And sometimes by focusing on the emotions, I've found that I'm able to help people by focusing on what people are feeling and what might be more ideal to feel. And what I mean by that is that emotions are always informative. All the emotions we feel have to do with an evolutionary system inside ourselves that is designed to protect us, to guide us. Generally, the emotions we feel are informative and are telling us about something we need to pay attention to when we feel them strongly enough. Now, you might wonder, well, that's only when they're really intense emotions. The truth is, we're always feeling something emotionally. We just don't often pay attention to it when it's not a concern and we don't feel the need to be reflective. And we're just proceeding with our life without really thinking about what we're feeling. But we're always feeling something. It's kind of like breathing. People don't think about breathing unless you call the attention to your breathing, and then you're thinking about, yes, I am breathing. But most of the time, the only time we think about breathing is after a flight of steps or some kind of exercise where we're really pushing ourselves hard and we're breathing, and the breathing feels labored and intense. We're thinking about our breathing then. So the concept of an emotion roadmap is to simply suggest that sometimes what we're feeling isn't always the best feelings to have. Let me give you a real life example. So I was about to start my show today, and I just looked at my phone to make sure the sound was off on my cell phone, and I noticed that I had a message from a very close friend of mine who has had cancer in the past and seemed to have licked it, but is back in the hospital, he just informed me, with a relapse. Now, there are some new treatments, and so there's some good news in this, but overall, it's not a good feeling. And so how do I deal with that feeling at the same time, try to be inspirational to all of you who are tuned in, who know I'm on the first and second Wednesdays of the month, and look forward to me having a conversation with you that's uplifting? How do we do that? How do I do that? How do I manage to control what I'm feeling about my very good friend and how I want to be for the rest of you? And I like to think of the idea of creating an emotional firewall, if you will. Kind of like for those of you that work with computers, you know, the idea of a firewall is designed to protect you from malicious content, from spam, from sites that are likely to impact in a negative way the programs that you run on your computer, even your whole computer yourself, even ransomware. There's all kinds of things that are dangerous on computers that firewalls protect you against in theory. Can you create an emotional firewall? Which simply means to me that I will deal with this feeling at the end of my show, not during it. I'm talking about it now to make it useful for the program that I'm running for all of you. Can you create an emotional firewall to contain something that is a concern? So anyway, the answer is I believe you can. I have done it myself. I believe everyone is capable of doing something similar. It doesn't mean you repress the feeling. It doesn't mean that you abandon the feeling, that you deny the feeling. It simply means that you postpone reacting and dealing with the feeling for a time that's more conducive. And so I can do that later today. Anyway, that's the way I'm opening my show, with something a bit depressing. But let me tell you the uplifting part of the show. The uplifting part of the show is that you can control your emotions. You can have more control over your emotions than most people who haven't listened to the show understand. We can even change our emotions on occasion. And we can change the narrative around our emotions. What does that mean? That means when we feel something and the feeling isn't conducive to what we're trying to get done. That's another aspect of emotional intelligence, by the way, is that certain feelings are better for particular tasks than other feelings. And I'll explain more about that later in the show. But the idea is that the feeling you have may not be the best feeling for what you're about to do. And so what do you do with that? Well, you can change your reaction to the feeling. You can try to change the feeling. And one of the ways you change your reaction to the feeling is to change the narrative about it. So I'll talk more about that in a minute. But I always like to lead with the phone number for the show in case there's somebody that is a regular listener that's kind of been waiting. I'm not on the air a lot. I'm on twice a month. And so for an hour each, or 55 minutes actually. And so I'm on the air till 12:55 on the first and second Wednesdays of the month. And I basically am in here to be helpful. And in being helpful to you, if you call, if I can help you and find some way to make your life better because I walk you through this concept of an emotion roadmap, which basically says, let's identify how you're feeling. And let's talk about how the situation you're in is impacted by that feeling. And in terms of the situation, if it seems like there might be a better, more ideal feeling, let's talk about what that might be. So it's your situation, it's how you're feeling, and if anybody else is key, how is he or she or they feeling? And then what would be ideal for all of you that are key to the situation to feel? What would you like to feel? If you could magically make any feeling happen, what would you want to feel? And anyone that's key, what would you want them, him or her, to feel? That's the concept. That's how it works. The key question in all that I do is to simply ask yourself when things seem unclear, uncertain, when you're feeling conflicted and you are really feeling stuck, one of the key ways of getting unstuck is to ask yourself, what would be ideal to feel? If I could make magic happen in this moment, what would I ideally like to feel? for me, and again, if anyone else is key to what I'm trying to get done for them as well. And once you go down that road and you select a feeling that feels much better to you, that would be right if you could make it happen, you start to plan in your head. Your brain gets consumed by the idea, how do I get from what I am feeling to what would be ideal to feel? How do I do it? And your brain starts to tackle that. Now, sometimes if you call in, I will help you with that. And by helping you with changing your feelings from what is to what's ideal, to go from your current feeling to your future feeling, I'm helping you engage in individual change management. It's change management theory that starts with a current state and a compelling vision of a future state that just seems great if you could possibly get there. And then we start to plan for how do we get you there? How do we do it? How do we make that happen? So again, I'll give you the phone number in case you want to call. And the reason you might call is anything to do with family, work, community. Sometimes you have situations in clubs where you're a volunteer, where you're a member, where the club itself and the being part of it is wonderful. But there's certain things happening in the moment that are really a bit of a struggle for you, and you're not sure how to handle them, and you don't want to get it wrong. And so you might benefit from calling in and talking to me about that. And again, I'll walk you through. Tell me a bit about your circumstance. I understand it's sometimes not easy to talk about something personal on the airwaves. That's not easy for people. But you have a chance to get some professional help. I'm an expert in emotional intelligence and in leadership and in problem solving around emotion-based problem solving. And I'm here to help you. And I'm here to help not just you, but if I help you and it works and people can hear how I do this, hopefully everybody that listens to the show is learning at the same time. So the show is designed to be helpful to everybody. Everybody that's listening, everybody that's out there. And by the way, I know that some people are going to watch this show. They watch it on Simsbury Media. It used to be Simsbury Television. Now it's Simsbury Media. But it's on the Simsbury station in the hometown where I live because I actually videotaped this show. And if you want to go to Simsbury Media or on the internet, you can see a bunch of shows and watch me talk into the microphone. And sometimes with callers, you'll hear them. You won't see them because they're not on a camera. But anyway, you'll be able to hear that. So that's what the show is. It's about helping you and trying to help everyone who listens to understand this process I've created called an emotion roadmap, which starts with identify how you're feeling, use of emotion, which is understanding how those feelings are impacting how you're thinking and behaving, and ask you to consider what would be more ideal to feel. Understanding emotions, which is asking how do you get from what you are feeling to what would be ideal, and then managing emotions, where you select a strategy that I help you with. I help you think through what it is you're feeling and what would be ideal to feel, and then help you to think about ways in which you might consider doing some things differently in order to change how you feel or think about how you feel or talk about your feelings in your own mind, change your self-narrative. I help you with all that. And then I help you select a feeling, because the managing part, in order to have a emotion-based planning strategy that you feel has a really excellent chance of working, you have to be able to answer these two questions. Is it something I'm able to do? Now, able doesn't mean just competency. It might mean that it's going to take time. It might cost you some money. Not all the solutions we talk about cost money or take a lot of time, but sometimes they do. So you have to be able. In other words, you really have to have the capability to get it done. And the second question is, are you willing? And as curious as it may seem, people that find strategies that they're able to do, they're not always willing. And I'll share an example of that with you as we go through the hour together. But first, again, I want to it's always, again, more fun for me, too, if I've got callers and I can actually problem solve with you on the air. So 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. That's the number to call. So I'll give you a minute. And I'd encourage you to call early in the show, because the earlier you call, the more time I have to give to you. If it gets late in the hour that I have on the air, I'll try and be helpful to you, but it's often a bit rushed, it feels, at the very end. So if you've got something you're thinking about calling, there was an old Neil Young, not that old, but a couple of years old, Neil Young song, It Might Have Been. It's a song about all the things you might have done, that could have been, that would have been if you'd taken the action and made the move. So if you've got something you think you'd like to call about, don't wait. Make the call. Get some help, and hopefully you'll feel at the end of the conversation with me very hopeful about what we talk about, as opposed to the feelings you might be having right now that kind of feel, they're of concern, and you might even feel somewhat helpless around those feelings. So 203-336-9756. Now, wait a minute before I dive in and start entertaining you with some very thoughtful things that I want to share with you. I always come in with something to share in case I don't get callers right away. But then I start telling stories that people find really engaging. And so then it makes you think, well, I'd rather hear the story than call. And I just as soon have you call. So again, I'll give you another minute. 203-336-9756. Well, if you're trying to dial and you're trying to get through, I'll give you the number one more time because you haven't got through yet. 203-336-9756. Okay. Feel free to interrupt me if you decide that you want to call as I'm talking. Oh, I've got somebody. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Linda.
I'm sorry, what? Linda. Okay. Thanks for calling, Linda. How can I help you today?
I was calling because I'm sort of going through some transition with challenges at work and a boss that doesn't really like me. And I'm a professional and I really like my job. I'm getting close to retirement, but I don't really want to retire yet. And I guess I'm nervous about what retirement's going to mean for me. I know I have a lot of interests in things, but I've dedicated my life to my career. And I kind of hate to give that a situation where I can totally do a volunteer. So I don't know kind of how to let go of my career identity, I guess is what I'm saying.
So there's two different questions based, I think, on what you're calling about, Linda, if I heard you right. One is that you're concerned a bit about a retirement and you have a boss in a situation where you really like what you do, but you feel like the boss doesn't seem to care about you. Is that right? Is that part of it?
I just missed the end of it.
I said you.
I'm kind of driving.
Oh, that's okay. So you feel like you have a boss that you're not sure, or at least you think that he doesn't care about you or doesn't seem to like you.
She doesn't. Correct.
She doesn't. Okay. And so there's a concern there because you're not ready to retire. But as you think about retirement and you know you're close, you also have a concern about what's that going to be like for me, because I've kind of defined myself as someone who is a professional and really enjoy what I do. And I have some things that I know I'll enjoy doing when I retire, I'm also concerned about kind of the loss of meaning around who I am and what I do. Does that sound right?
Right. And I guess too, yes. I don't have children. I don't have a spouse. I don't have that network of people that I can really spend time with, like many of my friends do that spend time with their kids and their grandkids. Understood.
But just out of curiosity, are you close with any family in where you live?
I am with an older sibling, yes.
Okay.
But, again, that's basically it.
Okay. So what are the things that I always like to ask once I understand what's going on is, how are you feeling and how do you want to feel? So can you talk about how you're feeling currently about these things?
I feel worried. I feel worried and I feel anxious and a little sad and depressed, frankly, that, I didn't make some of the other life choices that may or may not have been the best, but, I did what I could at the time. And so I feel lonely. Okay.
And so that's pretty clear to me, those feelings. I think you're right about the way you're talking about it. It sounds right in terms of describing how you're feeling. Ideally, what would you like to feel?
I'd like to feel excited and enthusiastic and overjoyed about, having the freedom in terms of time and some finances to be able to do some of the things that I'd like to do, and to not feel guilty that I'm not working in a field that I've devoted my life to, and to feel like I can do other things and don't need to always be giving back in a sense.
So the idea of feeling excited and comfortable, financially comfortable, and able to do the things that you've possibly thought about and would love to do, but there's also, you want to be able to let go of any guilt that surrounds how you feel when you wake up in the morning if you're not going into work to do what you've trained for and been doing for so long that you're so good at. Right. Okay, so now I guess one of the things that I also like to ask is, have you ever found yourself feeling lonely and depressed and not wondering if you made the wrong decisions, but somehow turned it around and felt better at a point in time, even though you weren't sure how you were going to do that? The reason I'm asking this is that sometimes if the circumstances were quite different, but the feelings were similar, it might be that you have something in your background, in your life, in your experience that is helpful to you in pulling you forward to help you to realize what you'd like to feel today. I don't know if anything like that exists, but is there anything that comes to mind?
Anything that comes to mind that, could you just repeat it again?
One of the things that are helpful sometimes is to think about, have you ever found yourself in kind of it sounds like you're kind of lonely and depressed and uncertain about what's to come next. There's a level of uncertainty there too. And you're wondering about how can you get yourself to feel excited and inspired about what the new possibilities are and view this as a new adventure and exciting times. And you're not there yet, but I'm wondering if you ever had an experience in your past, any time in your life, whether it was a very long time ago when you were very young or in more recent times. But is there anything that you can think of where you were feeling kind of depressed in a similar way and you're able to energize and excite yourself somehow?
Yeah, I'd say yes.
And is there anything that, if you think about that example, you don't have to share it, but is there anything in that example that you think might be useful in this circumstance?
Well, maybe faith, because a lot of the things that happened when I was in other circumstances like that were things that just happened with events that happened that I wasn't in control of that or didn't do anything in particular. I just met certain people and different circumstances evolved.
How does faith play a role in that? Or how did faith play a role?
Well, I guess I didn't really have faith then. I just looking back on it, I'm saying to myself, maybe what you need to do is have more faith because things seem to work out then.
So you have a history. You have a history of not really knowing and planning for changes to happen in a positive way, but they did, and you're wondering if perhaps one of the elements of what you might be, in terms of trying to feel better about your circumstance, whether or not you want to hold on to faith as one of the at least foundation pieces of what might be an emotion-based plan for you.
I guess so, yes. And I mean, I did try certain things in the past, and, some were successful and some weren't. So, and I'm sure I'd be trying similar things again.
Can you give me an example? Can you give me an example of something that you tried in the past that succeeded? When I lived abroad and I was by myself and in a new country, and I did reach out to people and try to develop friendships, and I just happened to meet some people that I really clicked with. It wasn't directly through my efforts, but I guess maybe, I don't remember exactly, maybe in an indirect way. So it was about reaching out to people in new circumstances, new surroundings. You didn't know anybody, but you kind of pushed yourself kind of out the door, and you found yourself meeting people, some of whom you liked, and some of which turned into successful relationships for you. Yes. Is there anything from that you could glean that might be useful to think about in transitioning now from where you are and what you've been doing to somehow finding ways to kind of push yourself out, have faith that you're going to find new relationships and new adventures that might take you down a path that you don't know what that path is yet. But chances, if you believe in yourself and in faith, having the ability to provide new circumstances that you will cope well with, like you did before when you're out there on your own. Does that offer any hope for you?
It helps a little. You know, I'm just, I guess, telling myself that circumstances are different now. I was quite young then. And I think that some things are harder to do as you get older in terms of finding people and relationships that maybe I'm wrong, so.
Well, I wouldn't, it's what I would say now, as opposed to just pulling from you and just to offer to help with this a bit, is that it's definitely different. Certain things are, having the energy, feeling physically fit, mentally engaged, being at the top of your game. Those things change over time, and they don't get better necessarily. So that is depressing. And by the way, you're not alone in that, right? Everybody that's getting older feels that. So that in itself is that's just part of your life. And it's part of everybody's life. The concept for me is where it changes is this is a new situation. It's a new adventure. You calling me is a new adventure for me, right? I didn't know you were going to call. I didn't know what we were going to talk about. But the possibilities exist that somebody's going to pick up the phone and call and make the show worthwhile. I don't know that when I come into the studio. You don't know that when you retire, that you don't know what's about to come. But here are some ways to help you think about that.
Okay.
One of the things that I found is that people that retire, they think they're going to do it. They think they're going to enjoy life right away just by having the freedom to stay up late and to get up when they feel like it in the morning. And that lasts, it depends on the person, but that might last a week or a month or 3 months. And some people, it actually lasts for the rest of their lives, and they're okay with it, but not for a lot of people. Not for people like yourself, I think, that have had a purpose and a meaning in life that's been very important to you. It's how you've defined yourself. And I think you're going to look for something with purpose and meaning. Now, you might start to ask yourself, where might I do that? Where I don't have to go in every day, because I'm not going to feel good every day. That's not part of what happens when you get old. But where I can go in and where whatever I do, wherever I go, I'll make new relationships, be with people similar to myself, and I can make a difference. Does that appeal at all?
Yes.
So then you want to ask yourself, well, what makes for if you will, a volunteer experience? And I actually did some research about this with other listeners, and what people told me and what I believe to be true is that I think you want to find a group where you're doing something that you like. You're doing something that you can learn to be good at. You may not be good at it immediately because it's going to be new, but where it might tap into some existing strengths that you already have, but use them in different ways to help other people. It always seems to feel good to help somebody who has a greater need than you do at any point in time. And so if you can step into a role somewhere where you feel purposeful, where you're doing something with people that you like, where there's purpose and meaning in what you do, and you can do it when you feel good enough to get up and do it, and you don't have to do it all the time, and you don't have to feel like it's a job in the same way that you had a job that you had to show up for every day. But that any time that you come in and you're part of it, everybody's glad to see you. Does that provide some guidelines for what might work for you?
Yes. Thank you.
So I hope that's helpful. But the whole idea is, what is it you're actually willing and able to do? And if anything we've just talked about, it sounds like these are things that you're willing to consider at this point, at least. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Now, the faith part comes in that you've had an experience in the past where you went out, ventured on your own, took a big risk, went across the seas, went someplace very different, and you were able to figure it out. And I don't think as we get older, we get less smart. I think we get wiser and have more experiences. And that's one of the few things about aging that's a big plus. So,
Okay, well, that's encouraging.
well, we don't have the same energy that we had. We do have a heck of a lot more experience. And typically, someone like yourself is going to be a lot wiser than you might have been back then. Does that ring true for you?
In some respects. In some respects. I think wiser, yes. Cognitively, not quite as sharp as I was when I was younger.
I agree. I agree. No, I think I said that. I don't think we're as sharp as we want. Yeah, I don't think, again, that doesn't get better. But the vast amount of experience has taught us some things. We've learned some lessons we didn't know when we were younger. Does that feel right?
Yes, that's true.
So I think that'll make it even easier for you to begin to find something that's meaningful on the outside of what you've been doing. That'll be very helpful for you going forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call, Linda. I appreciate it.
Have a good day.
You too now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that was Linda. And that's how the show works, folks. It's basically designed to help you to understand how it is that we engage with ourselves and others. And I want to shut this off. Here we go. So I want to just basically say that the steps that you walk through are the same, and the circumstances can be quite different. So what was important as you listen to this concept of the roadmap is to say, how are you feeling? What's your circumstance? Why are you feeling that way? And what would be ideal to feel? And if we can figure out, was there a time when you might have been feeling something similar and you wanted to feel better, and also you wanted to feel some of the same feelings you talked to me about just a moment ago, did you ever do that before? And if you did, can you draw from it? And because Linda was able to draw from it, and Linda, if you're still listening, because you're able to draw from it, you and I didn't work on my plan. But I will tell you something that might be useful for you that I didn't mention, but useful to anybody going through this, is a good friend of mine, Kathy Cram. If you look her up, she's going to have a book out in September, I think, that has studied professionals going through a retirement transition. And we'll have a lot of information that won't be as useful as what you and I just did, Linda, because we just talked about you. But you'll see what lots of people have done. And I think you'll get ideas from her book. I listened to her. I was at a conference with her recently, and she talked about some of the things that she learned. And really impressive. Kathy is a great person, very empathetic. And she went through her own transition. And rather than just retire, she decided to study retirement, which is not unusual for Kathy. But anyway, you look up her name is Kathy, Kathy, and Cram, Kram. And I think her book is, last I heard, it was going to come out in September, be published then. So you could look for it then. It's all about the questions you had, Linda. But in terms of the roadmap, the concept is to try and find something, if you have it, in your past, where you might have had the experience of a similar set of feelings, different situation, but the feelings were similar. And if you were able to move from some negative feelings that you're having to more positive feelings, kind of see the light in a sense, is there something you can borrow from that? Because once you realize that you had a circumstance that sounds somewhat similar, feels somewhat similar, in some ways was similar, and you can build from that, it changes how you're thinking about what's going on. Instead of reacting to things I might have suggested, which you would have said, yeah, that's interesting, but I don't know if that's for me. And I could try and throw a bunch of things up against the wall and see if anything stuck. I don't do that. I ask you what might be useful in your own life that we can borrow from, because I want to help you build your plan. I don't want to tell you what my plan for you is, although I will help you with your plan if you have one. Now, sometimes you don't, and I'll start from scratch, and I'll ask you what you've already tried and see if there's anything there that I want to avoid saying that I think would be an obvious choice, but you've already dismissed it. And then I'll ask, well, okay, I've heard what you've tried. Are you open to me suggesting a couple other ideas and see what you think? So I will offer to help when there is nothing you can draw on from your past. And you've also tried some things that seem obvious and they didn't work. Or they didn't work for you, but and you're open to hearing about some other things. And then we'll see if we can land on something that works. So I'm hoping that everybody who's listening gets the idea of this is how the roadmap works. So again, I encourage you to call if you like, 203-336-9790. 9756. Doesn't have to be anything like Linda's. Could be like Linda's. Could be you want to suggest maybe you've gone through retirement and you were in a space similar to where Linda was. This is a community radio station, and I like the idea that sometimes the community listens in and they think they got something they'd like to share that might be helpful to Linda if she's still listening. And if you got something like that, that's great. If you want to share it, you can give me a call and share that. Again, 203-336-9756. And I've still got about 25 minutes left in the show. So again, this is a good time to call if you've got something. I want to encourage you to call rather than to wait towards the end. So if you're thinking about calling, pick up the receiver. If it's a smartphone, talk to it and tell it what to dial if you're in your car. 203-336-9756. Okay, I do want to talk about something that I came to the show today to share with you. It's about a feeling. So if I asked you what you thought was the most important feeling ever for everyone to experience, I wonder what you would say. In fact, if you want to have a conversation about that, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are about what you think is the most important feeling for you. And perhaps you think it might be important as well, extremely important for others too. So what do you think is the most important feeling? If you're raising kids, what do you want them to feel right away? What do you think is really incredibly important? It's kind of hard to say what's the most important feeling, I guess, but what feelings come to mind when I ask that question of you? And I'll share one with you, but I'll wait and see if anybody else wants to call about that. 203-336-9756. What do you think are incredibly important feelings that you'd like to see people feel? Hi, this is Chuck. Oh, can you turn your radio down? You got to turn your dial down so we can talk. Ah, there you go. Hi, thanks for calling. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
My name is Jean.
Hi, Jean. Thanks for calling.
I appreciate your show. I'm listening. I'm driving. I think the most important feeling anybody can feel is that you're okay and that you're the way you are and that you're capable of life.
That you're okay and capable of life. Okay. I mean, that seems like it's really a critical one, that you're able to cope with whatever comes. That's a great feeling, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's my answer.
Oh, okay. Can I tell you mine?
Sure.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've really focused on in recent times is this feeling of belonging, to feel like I belong somewhere, that I'm part of some group. I'm part of a family. I'm part of a couple. I'm part of a work team. I'm part of a band. I'm part of a race. I'm part of a religion. I'm part of my community. But somehow I feel like in all the places that matter in my life, I belong. Because when you don't feel like you belong, it feels like you're kind of out there alone. And that's very scary.
True.
So that's the one for me, because I find, some of the things that are happening in our world right now feel like if you belong to one group, you have to dislike another group. And I'm trying to think, how do we belong as a world community? How do you make that happen so we all kind of belong together as a human race, as a set of beings on the planet, not even just as humans, but as anything that lives, that we're all somehow in this universe experiencing the feeling that we all belong. And
exactly.
So I'm thinking more about that. So anyway, that's the feeling that I thought I'd mentioned today.
Yes.
It seems really important.
And that's what I meant when I said what I said. So
okay, well, I think feeling okay and feeling like you can cope with things really. Again, they I don't know if you know the concept of Venn diagrams, but they're like circles that overlap. And in my mind, what you said about coping and the ability to live. And then the ability to belong, I think they overlap in terms of what's most meaningful. So thank you so much, Jean, for the call. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the show.
Thank you for calling. Take care. Okay. Anybody else got any thoughts about what you think is a really important feeling to feel? 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Can you turn your radio dial down?
Yes, my name is Perry Holt. How are you today?
Good, Perry. Thank you for calling. Just for anybody else that's listening, just so you know, I can't pick up the other phone, so I just got 3 callers. So I'll get back to you when I can. Thanks, Perry. What are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I have a concept that I think is really interesting for everyone: to be time affluent. I think we should all strive to be time affluent. That leads to enjoyment. It leads to better mental health. And I think we should all try to work towards this idea. I can get in more detail if you want to talk later on this.
Well, you tell me. I mean, I don't know what time affluent means. So go ahead and explain that if you could.
So basically, it's a mental state. People are saying, I have no time. I've got no time to go to the gym. I've got no time this and that and all that.
Yeah.
But if you're time affluent, it opens up a whole avenue, a mental avenue to do many things.
So it's a concept
You're
that makes
able
you... Yeah, go ahead.
to be with friends. You're able to visit family members. Given that one 5-minute phone call to that old friend. And that leads to a lot more happiness in life.
So somehow getting a handle on managing your time and feeling like time affluent is that you have enough time. Is it about planning? Is it about just making the time to be thoughtful about how you use whatever days you have?
And working towards the fact that, hey, we're all running out of time, obviously, but the time we have, it's time well spent.
It's interesting. There's you may be familiar. Willie Nelson has had the country album of the year last year, and one of the songs on it has a line in it that I really love. It says, "Live every day of your life as if it was the last, because one day you're going to be right."
Exactly. That is very true.
I think what you just said is about living every day of your life very thoughtfully. If I caught what you said. Yeah.
Taking a little bit more time to reflect and be grateful. Every morning I take a swig of extra virgin olive oil. Okay. I get up and I say, thank you, Lord, one more day on this planet.
There you go. Well, thank you, Perry, for your upbeat, thoughtful approach to managing time in a way that it feels time affluent. I like the concept. Thanks for calling, Perry. I appreciate it.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so I had some other callers that were calling in, and I've got somebody. Okay. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who's calling, please?
Hi, how you doing? My name is Maximus.
It's Max. Did you say?
Maximus, like the gladiator.
Oh, Maximus. Okay, thanks you for calling, Maximus. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so, some people might look at what I have to say as maybe overrated. Some people might disagree with me, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. But I still think it's very important in today's day and age that we all feel some sort of love throughout our lives.
That's great.
Because, in my opinion, I feel like when we have that experience, we're definitely more confident in ourselves. Our self-esteem gets boosted. We feel more secure. And especially for the people out there that are alone, I bet you if you go out there and find some piece of love, it's going to change you. It's going to change you forever.
No, that's a lovely, I guess, that's a lovely thing to say, Maximus. I think you're right. I think love is a big part of what makes life very special. To feel love and to be loved and to love others, I think is a great gift to you and to everyone else in your circle that experiences that. So thank you very much for the call.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And just to add to that, not even, just loving another human being. It could be a pet. It could be a thing. Just, find something that's going to make you happy, something that you're going to love.
Good point. I really appreciate your call. Thank you so much for sharing.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you for having me on here. Thank you.
You betcha now. Bye-bye. Hello, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Could you turn your radio dial down?
How you doing, Chuck?
I'm going fine, thanks. Who am I talking to?
This is Pete from New Haven.
Hi, Pete. Thanks for calling.
I just wanted... Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to throw out a one for you, compassion.
Great.
Kind of put that in your Venn diagram.
How does that show up for you, Pete?
I was listening to your program, kind of connecting with others, we are sentient beings, so kind of having good, compassion for all beings kind of puts you in a good place in the world, I think.
I think so too. I think compassion is, again, one of those key feelings. So all the ones really that people have called and talked about. And compassion kind of ranges from, I guess, to Maximus's point a moment ago. It's like you can have compassion for besides other people. You can have compassion for animals. You can have compassion, for historic places. You can have compassion for the earth, and feel
There you go.
like you have to take care. We have to take care of Mother Earth. So I think compassion really is another one of those really grandiose feelings that when you feel it, it feels special and makes life better. Also, when people feel compassion towards you, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you.
Well, thanks.
Enjoy your show.
Thanks a lot for the call, and I appreciate it. Take care, Pete. Bye-bye now.
You too, Joe. All right, bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. Anybody else out there has got something? I know there was a few other callers I think that I didn't get to. So hopefully if you can call me back. It's, again, the number is 203-336-9756. What an interesting collection of feelings, huh? Time affluent. That was interesting, right? Compassion, love, it's so interesting, your ability to just live life fully, where we started with Gene, to be able to cope, and then to feel like you belong, that somehow you belong here, that you're in the right place, you're in the right group, you're on the right planet, you're in the right community, and that you're part of being someone that makes the world. You feel like you belong to the world. You're a world citizen. Your group is the world. It's the earth. It's the people on the earth. It's the animals. It's the plants. It's everything. How do you feel more part of it? You both feel like you belong to the universe somehow in a very special way. At least to me, belonging was one of those things that was resonating with me recently that I've just been thinking about a lot. Okay. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
My name is Joe.
Hi, Joe. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, thank you. I'm enjoying your show.
Thank you.
I like to throw my hat into the ring and say I think the penultimate or maybe the ultimate feeling is just to be happy.
Okay.
Love is good, but you can find yourself without love sometimes.
Right.
But happiness stays with you. I just think that can make your life a lot easier if you could smile, find inner peace, and just be happy with it.
You make an interesting point, Joe. I mean, part of me doing this show is that when people call in, they say something nice about the show, or like when Linda called, and hopefully I was able to help her with the idea of transitioning to retirement. If anybody gets helped, I really feel it's making me happy to do that. That's partly why I volunteer to do this, So, yeah.
Well, I've been listening for a number of years, and I think it helps.
Thank you. Anything specific? Because it's always helpful to get if you've been listening that long. Anything specific that you think is helpful?
Well, the emotion roadmap is a concept that that you taught me. So, finding one of the ways, like you said earlier to the caller, find something that worked for you in the past.
Yeah.
And prove to yourself that you were able to do it then. So why can't you use that same tactic now?
Have you actually been able to use that?
I think I do.
Oh, good for you.
I very much do.
Well, that's very specific, and that's great. I'm glad. It's really interesting. One of the callers I had a few months back was someone who said, "How long have you been on the air?" I said, it's actually the 15th year I've been doing this now. And he said, well, I have my son. He's 13 years old. And I've been listening to you since before he was born. And I've raised him with a lot of the things that I've learned from listening to this show. And he's a good kid. And I want to thank you for that. That was like one of the nicest calls I ever got, so.
There you go. Makes you feel good, right?
Yeah, it makes me happy, right?
Makes you happy, right? Yeah. Yeah, like I said, love sometimes is fleeting, and like I said, sometimes you can't find it, but like happiness should be your own. You can control that.
Yeah, to a
really
degree.
do think
To a
you
degree,
can.
you can. Yeah. Sometimes life kind of throws a lot of hard balls and curve balls and knuckle balls, and they're kind of hit back, hard to hit back out. But I think a lot of what you do, you're in much more control than most people give themselves credit for. So,
Yeah.
and if you've been listening to the show, you know that too. So,
I think the Buddha, I think, says something like you can find even the man in prison can find his inner peace.
yeah. There's actually that's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the psychologist that was in World War II and was in a camp, and somehow he was still able to, because of what his mental controls gave him, his ability to emotionally manage what he was living with, he was able to find ways to stay, mentally whole, emotionally stable, despite the horrible event. So
It's important. Without your sanity, without your ability to be whole, you lose all your ability to change your life.
right. So
and we all go through those changes. Like you were talking to the caller earlier. When you get older, there's changes you didn't expect. I'm getting older. I thought things were going to get easier. But like the cognitive liquidity and the speed of thought seems to be a lot less than I was 20 years ago.
Well, I think that's, where, again, a friend of mine and I were just talking about this when I was on my way to the show. I have an hour and a half ride or so to get here. And and my friend's, 80 years old. And he says, 80 is different. 80 is definitely different, and not in a good way, he wasn't saying. So I get it. And I do think it's true. But I also realize, and this is something I counseled somebody about a while back. So another caller called in, and they were losing their business for a different set of circumstances, but that were sort of out of their control. It wasn't something they had done, but things had changed in where they were, the marketplace had changed, etc. But he was struggling with the idea of how is he going to deal with his family, how is he going to provide, and I encouraged him to think about. And he wasn't that old; he was probably around 45, 50 years old, and this was happening. And he had some young kids at home, and we talked about it. I said, his name was Michael. I said, Michael, when you think about what have you learned, I realize you don't have the energy you had when you were 22 and starting out. But think about what is different now about you at 45 with all these years of experience being a successful business owner. What do you know now that you didn't know then? So you don't need the same amount of energy to go back out and recreate this. You can do this a lot faster and a lot smarter. Again, you don't have the same energy, but boy, you have experience and you've learned things and you have wisdom and knowledge that you didn't have before that's going to make you better. And he was really feeling good about that message by the time we were through. So, yeah.
Good. And as I approach retirement myself, I really appreciated that previous call.
Oh, there you go. Part of this is the idea I love about the way WPKN features these programs at 12 noon is it's a community radio station, this community block. And I like the idea that, people are listening to each other and hopefully finding ways to be helpful to each other as well.
Well, as a staff member myself for a community radio station, WUSB Stony Brook.
Okay.
Who considers ourselves the most dangerous station in the nation. I tip my hat to WPKN, the greatest station in the world.
That's what the New Yorker said, yeah. That's funny.
So, Chuck, I'll let you go.
Okay, thanks a lot. Appreciate the call.
You're very welcome. Thank
Bye-bye
you.
now. Okay, great. So we've had a number of callers today, which has been great. I still got a little bit of time if you want to call in, just a couple of minutes. So the number to call is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. With just a couple of minutes, though, I'll probably just kind of sign off here at the end of the show. So one of the things we did when we first started the show, as I mentioned, that there's this concept where you have an emotion roadmap. And the roadmap essentially is this idea that when you're stuck, when somehow you feel like the feelings you're having aren't helpful, and you need to try and feel something different for what you have in front of you. Like I did. I think I mentioned in the very beginning, I had a show that was, about to start, and I got a message from someone that I'm going to have to deal with in just a couple of minutes now, who's a really, really close friend, and his cancer has reemerged. But he said there's some good news, and the good news is there's new and better treatments he's going to go through. So he's a very positive guy, and he's a fighter. So I'm glad about that, but I'm obviously upset that that's happened to him. So I'm going to call him, try and make him feel better, see what's going on, and see if I can be helpful. So that's the best we can do. We can be compassionate with others. We can love others. We can feel like others belong in the teams that we're on, that whoever it is that we care about, they're part of those teams. And we can feel like, as best we can, that we belong to the same planet. We're all part of the same big team, and hopefully can see each other even when we have differences in a way that brings light and hope and love to the circumstances that we find ourselves in, because we're really challenged today in so many different ways with so many different feelings and emotions going on, whether it's the politics in our country, whether it's race relations, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia. There's so many different things happening in the world that are challenging. But if you listen to this show, hopefully the Emotion Roadmap is helping you to cope, is to find out that you can survive it all, like when we started talking about feelings, and that you feel the love and the kindness and the gift that you could bring to the world is the things that you do for yourself that benefit mankind, humankind, womankind, all kind, and that you benefit the world in some way. Again, so you'll listen to Chuck Wolf, The Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel, the first and second Wednesdays of each month on WPKN 89.5 FM and listener-supported radio, WPKN.org. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.